Very good morning, everyone. Charles here of Frgnt Daily Chart Analysis. The date today, 21st of May 2026. Time is just approaching 9:30 local time here in Milan. Just finished getting done with a live call for Frgnt Mastery. And since it's clear in mind, I figured I'll give a little bit of a breakdown for those of you that are viewing on TradingView only. So, first and foremost, I'm looking at GJ shorts this morning. As you can see by the session highs in the market, better illustrated on that 4 hour time frame. In fact, better illustrated on the daily time frame. What you have to recognize in the market is what's happening and what continues to happen, I should say. So the daily time frame for me is giving some clear signs that we are in a session high type of element. As you can see, every daily candle, let's say, over the most recent, almost a week, just even above a week, we're failing to break above and close these areas, wick into those highs. So straight away this morning, I've recognized that prices come into that session high area and then over to the 4 hour time frame to try and identify, do I have a 4 hour order block around that area? No, I don't. So I therefore have to approach this as a session high type of position. Now, my formation is printing at the moment from session highs. I don't take those aggressively. I understand how session highs work in the market. Retail traders are very much so looking at the area in terms of support and resistance and taking immediate selling positions. So therefore, what I need to understand is my entry criteria first and foremost. I was much preferred, or I would be much happier, I should say, for price to push up first and foremost. But what I'm identifying now is that bearish engulfing candle. Hopefully, so that will leave me behind a 15-minute order block for me to look to manipulate on those lower time frames before they're looking for a short position. So although price is printing in the direction of travel that I wish it to go at the moment, that's simply the setup aligning for my entry criteria. So that's the first thing I'm looking at this morning. GJ, you can see the amount of alerts I've had on GJ, so I'll have to amend that one coming back up. And what I'll do, I'll just place a nice 15-minute order block just there up at the highs to see if price is going to get back to those areas in a moment. So that's GJ for a potential short this morning. We'll have to see if that is available. Back over to the DXY is how I like to start my trading day, to understand, as it is the catalyst, as I do trade the majority of cross pairs using that US dollar, I need to find out what the US dollar is likely to do. So I believe that US dollar strength now coming into the market, good stuff, pushing up into an area of those session highs, refined area on the 4 hour time frame, where I believe as a result of that weekly time frame in particular, now I'm looking weekly order block, weekly 50 MA, price is failing to break and close above that area at the moment. Therefore, I'm going to repeat the process and hope that I can see, or hope that I can have a good setup coming out of that by way of structure. And I'm looking for that structure on a 15-minute time frame. So what we had yesterday, price came up into that area. We've had that move below. What I would have preferred to have seen is price actually break those structure points on that 15-minute time frame, come back for that looking short on the index. However, we don't have that. Therefore, I'm going to have to make my structure a little bit more intricate to break, and therefore looking then over to the cross pairs, whether or not a good looking long position on, let's say, potential cross pairs such as GU and EU, as the dollar will now look to provide us, hopefully, with that weakness coming out of the market. So we'll head there shortly. Over to GCAD. Like GCAD today, looking at potential GCAD both ways, but I'd much prefer the short scenario on GCAD. If you head over to the daily time frame, we've got that daily order block, and what's better to see, in my opinion, is the fact that price is still remaining to close above that daily 50 MA on the daily time frame, meaning that any time for the day that price is printing above that daily 50 MA, my thought process is that I'm going to reject it towards the downside for another potential candle to close bearish below it, or it could just about be bullish, but below that daily 50 MA. But if you look at the most recent candles on that daily time frame, every time we've wicked into the daily 50 MA, we've rejected it to the highs and then we've closed below. So that's my thought process today. With that said, do I have good enough range towards the 4 hour 50 MA that price unfortunately has most recently closed above and rejecting it towards those highs? So be looking to understand whether or not I have the range to do so, which I'll be looking at that on the 15-minute time frame. And once I head over to the 15-minute time frame, I can see quite clearly that once I set a sell position from these areas, If that's going to load, once I set a potential sell position from that area, am I having the range down to management, which would be my 4-hour 50 MA? And to be honest, by the time price gets to that 4-hour 50 MA at a risk to reward of just over 3%, I'll most certainly be looking to close that out. Anyway, so that's GCAD for me. I quite like GCAD, of course, from these areas. As always, I'm not setting instant positions. More often than not, my sell limits are going to be coming out from absolute highs and lows of the market. Like what I took on AU yesterday. It's one of those scenarios where if you're wrong, you're more than likely just going to be incredibly wrong as price then pushes out of your area, and off it goes to the next point of interest towards the highs for a better looking short position. So at the moment, not looking to take GCAD as a sell limit, although it looks averagely good. Be happy just to wait for some confirmation from GCAD before looking for that short position out of those areas down to the 4-hour 50 EMA. But what must be said is, if I was to hold that position past the 4-hour 50 MA, as a result of actually being closer towards the Friday now, the close of business, if you bring your attention to the top right-hand chart, you can see the most recent weekly candle closed below that weekly 50 MA. So my thought process is, of course, this current weekly candle has every incentive to also close below that weekly 50 MA. So for me, if I am going to manage my position by the 4-hour 50 MA and potentially hold that overnight, I'd be looking at taking price a couple of percent further down to the weekly 50 MA, if not further beyond that, as a result of price looking to reject that for the week. But that's definitely one to just pay close and careful attention to and just understand the dynamics of what's going on. So that's GCAD for me at the moment. Quite like GCAD, not too bad at all. GJ still presented that bearish engulfing candle, good news. So still got 5 minutes for that candle to close, and we'll go from there. So AU, I quite like AU as well. With me and AU currently, I am only able to take short positions as a result of being in that higher time frame weekly order block. What I did like yesterday, hence why I took that sell limit, is the previous daily candle, or say Tuesday's daily candle closed bearish below that daily 50 MA. So of course, as the illustration shows, as a result of that low created, we've finally broken that that bullish structure towards the upside on the daily time frame after the low, expecting that lower high for the lower low continuation. Look over to the 4-hour time frame, you can see that beautifully illustrated as well, just by way of bearish price action on that 4-hour time frame. So we had that lower low, price came in for the lower high, lower low, price came in, that was my entry around that time for that lower low continuation. So looking for a price, if we make that, or if we do not make a further lower low, I am still sell biased on AU as a result of that 4-hour time frame, and as a result of what we can see clearly now is that we definitely have a key structure point here in the market, which, as a result of price failing to break above that, I will remain bearish. And of course, coming out of that weekly order block to those highs, my thought process is sells only anyway. So looking to see if price is going to come back up to these areas, provide me with that lower time frame break of structure, entry criteria for a short position. Caveat to that is, of course, got these session highs up at this highs just here, which any immediate position could quite open you up for that type of manipulation. Therefore, entry criteria and setup is very much so valid at this stage, and a sell limit for me is not valid anymore on AU as it was yesterday. So that's AU for me. Let's find another half decent looking one. Okay, perfect. So this is exactly what I wanted to see in the market today. On the EU, we've had that break below that area, now bringing into contention this potential 15-minute point of interest. So we can quite clearly say from this area now, we've had that break of the market, looking for price to come back into that 15-minute order block, look for the entry criteria for a potential short from there. My other thought process was that price was just going to gravitate towards that 4-hour 50 MA first and foremost, hence why I'm not looking to take any immediate positions from this area unless I got that break of structure. So I'm happy to see that now. So that's EU, looking for a pullback, and I'll pretty much leave it there, team. That's 10 minutes of your time already. So a lot to take into consideration today. Looking at the looking at the DXY, looking at GCAD, GJ potentials, AU, EU, even GU for a good example as well. So everything's looking half decent. I certainly prefer EU over GU for the shorts, and US dollar CAD potential shorts, but we'll have to see. So if the DXY is up at those areas now, US dollar CAD could give us that nice looking scenario. However, for me, US dollar CAD is not something that I'm looking to take today unless I get that break of structure, first and foremost, because as I can see, a couple of areas where US dollar CAD might want to gravitate up towards before looking at immediate shorts. I mean, it's certainly not a no for today. I just see much better positions where I'd be happier to wait for as opposing to taking this at the moment. So let's double check the DXY. Yeah, so the DXY is up at those highs. So if we do get the rejection, US dollar CAD should look quite nice actually. But I would much prefer trading a different pair as a result of prices being in that range. So one thing I spoke about in Frgnt Mastery there, I don't mind being wrong. What I mean by that, if price is in that range, we've had the push up, break below, and now we're looking for that higher high, higher low type of formation. Therefore, US dollar CAD for me is quite a risky looking position. And with that said, what I've said, well, if I am wrong and we are certainly in the range, we're just manipulating those highs of the range to look for price to come out of that area. But again, looking at how retail traders would trade this, of course, they're just seeing session highs in the market and looking for immediate short positions to come out of that area. That's something that I'm not interested in because we've all been there where we're starting out with trading and you're seeing support and resistance, you take an immediate sell, you gain into some profits, you're stopped out, and the buyers then in that case will look for the breakout type of position. They're stopped out, and all that will be is a beautiful bearish 15-minute engulfing candle to those lows that you'd have to wait for, a nice break of structure, and your better position will come a lot later. So for me, US dollar CAD is certainly not ready yet for me personally, but yes, I can certainly see where US dollar CAD will move towards the downside later on, providing that the DXY starts to respect these highs. So we just have to see, play by ear, manage the positions effectively, and manage your alerts to the best of your ability, and have a great trading day. Do take care, everyone. Thanks for your time. Take care. Charles.